Today on America's Test Kitchen, Julia prepares eggplant involtini. Lisa reveals her favorite microwave pasta cookers. Jack has crisp-tasting prosciutto. And Bridget cooks fusilli with ricotta and spinach. Right here on America's Test Kitchen.
Ecco Malanzani, no si scherza con me, or hey, I'm eggplant, don't mess with me. I'm happy, I'm healthy, and I'm pretty good looking too. But you buy me at the supermarket, take me home, cut me into pieces, throw me in hot oil, and make me into a complete grease ball. Quanto terribile. So let's go into the test kitchen with Julia and figure out how to make a great eggplant involtini that preserves my dashing good looks and my great flavor. You know, one of the best parts of this job is people send in little pictures or recipe ideas or letters, most of them kind, some of them occasionally unkind. But this is, you got to look at this. This is someone crocheted me. It's amazing. The legs are a little chubby, but they got the glasses and the bow tie. Anyway, so there you are. See, it's nice to have a cooking show, and people send you all sorts of likenesses. So speaking of likenesses, we're talking about eggplant, and we like it actually to taste good and be a lot easier because eggplant involtini takes hours to make.
Yes.
It's greasy, and at the end of it, you go like, this really wasn't worth it.
Yeah, and your kitchen's a disaster because you used every pot and pan and bowl you have. Yeah, usually eggplant involtini involves slicing the eggplant, salting it, breading it, frying it, and then rolling it up with cheese, putting it in a casserole and baking it, which is kind of a disaster. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the eggplant, and you want to have 2 eggplants, each pretty big, about 1.5 pounds, and I have one done already, but I'm going to show you how to prep this one. We're going to trim off the top and the bottom, and then we're going to peel it. I'm going to just trim off the sides because you want the slices to lie flat, obviously, so you have a nice flat surface to roll the filling up into. All right, so now we're going to slice this into 1/2 inch thick slices. And now I'm going to mark about 1/2 inch on the first slice so that I know how thick it is. And then very carefully, I'm going to cut straight down through the eggplant. And I've done this before in a hurried way, and my knife has been a little angled, and you get a little thicker on one end and then the other. So you just want to take your time here and make sure you go straight down. And now I'm going to put them on a baking sheet, which is obviously very different than breading and frying because we're going to roast the eggplant. So here I'm going to bring this tray forward, and now I'm going to brush both sides with a little bit of vegetable oil. And note that these baking sheets are lined with parchment, and that parchment is pretty well greased, or else the eggplant will really stick to it. This is about 5 tablespoons of vegetable oil, and we're going to brush this evenly over both sides of the eggplant and sprinkle it with salt and pepper. And this is a teaspoon of salt. Of course, we're going to divide it evenly among both sides, and 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. And then we're going to flip it over and do the second side. And so we're going to put these into a 375-degree oven for about 1/2 hour until they're tender and golden. So for our quick sauce, we're going to heat up 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil in the skillet over medium-low heat. And while that's heating, we're going to prep these tomatoes. Now notice these are whole peeled tomatoes and juice. And in the juice is a real key point here. You don't want them to be in puree or the sauce will be too thick. So we're going to strain the juice out. And we're going to use the juice in the sauce, but first we just want to chop the tomatoes. Now you might ask, why not just buy canned diced tomatoes? Because they're already prepped for you. Yeah, I knew you were. The difference is, as you know, that diced tomatoes have extra preservatives in them so that they can hold that diced.
Calcium chloride, I think they put in it.
That's right. And again, that helps them maintain that diced shape so they don't break down as quickly when they get heated. So I'm going to put these chopped tomatoes back in the juice because we're going to cook it all down to make our sauce. And it looks like that oil is nice and shimmery. If you would do the honors, that's 2 cloves of garlic, 1/4 teaspoon of dried oregano, and a pinch of red pepper flakes, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. You just want to cook that for about 30 seconds till it's nice and fragrant. Oh, I love that smell. All right, so now we're going to add our tomatoes.
You know, we did wonder why this dish gets so greasy, why the oil gets in when you fry it. Well, there are 2 reasons. There are air sacs in the eggplant, and there's also cells around them filled with water. So when you salt the eggplant, that actually deflates some of those sacs, so there's less place for the oil to get in. The other thing is, when you cook it at very high heat in hot oil, the water in those cells turns to steam and sort of disrupts the texture of the eggplant. So by roasting it for about 1/2 hour, we evaporated some of that water. So with the air out of the air sacs, there's no place for the oil to get in, and gently removing the water from those cells also means you don't disrupt the texture of the eggplant.
That's right. So you can see this sauce has come to a simmer. And now we're just going to reduce it down to medium-low and let it simmer gently for about 15 minutes till it's nice and thick. So these eggplant have been in the oven for about half an hour. And you can see they're nicely browned and they're tender, and that's perfect for making involtini. So we're just going to let these cool for about 5 minutes. But after 5 minutes, I'm going to very carefully flip them over because condensation will begin to form underneath the slices, and that'll make them soggy. In the meantime, we're going to make the filling. And most of the recipes for the filling include ricotta, and we're going to definitely include ricotta in our filling. And they have a little bit of extra cheese for flavor. And we found that pecorino over Parmesan was far superior because it has a much stronger flavor. But the problem with adding the pecorino into the ricotta is that it made the filling really rubbery and dense. So the key is we're going to add some fresh breadcrumbs because that really helps the filling stay nice and creamy. And this was one slice of bread that I tore into pieces. And then we're going to take these fresh breadcrumbs and stir it right into 1 cup of whole milk ricotta. So now we're going to add the pecorino, and this is half a cup of finely grated pecorino. This is a 1/4 cup of chopped basil. And now we're going to add a little bit of lemon juice. This is a tablespoon of lemon juice. And not a lot of recipes added that, but it really helps brighten up the filling. And of course, some salt. This is half a teaspoon of salt. And now we're just going to mix this all together till it's nice and uniform. All right, so the eggplant has been sitting there for 5 minutes, and now we're going to carefully take a spatula and flip them over. So you can see how it's a little wet on the bottom. And sometimes if you get a tender piece and it tears a little bit, that's okay. You can really just overlap it, push it back together, and you won't see it in the rollatini. I've done that before.
Except for the 2 million people watching you do it right now. No one can see you in the kitchen, Julia.
So I'm going to take some of the mixture, and you're going to put it on the bottom, the widest part.
So you're talking about a tablespoon, roughly?
Yeah, roughly. Of course, you're going to want to use a little more on the bigger ones and a little less for the smaller ones. All right, so this next step, we're just going to roll up the eggplant around the filling if you would like to help me. And the trick is, usually for a lot of recipes, they take these and they put them in a casserole dish and then cover it with sauce. We are going to do a step easier and save the dish, put it right into the skillet. And of course, we're putting them in the sauce seam side down so that they stay nice and rolled. And I'm just going to put one guy in the middle, and again, we can arrange the rest around the outside. There we go, nice and easy. So now I'm going to bring the skillet back over medium heat. So this has been simmering for 5 minutes. Now I'm going to run it under the broiler. And that broiler rack is 8 inches from the broiler element so that it's not too close so it doesn't hit the skillet handle.
Today I'm going to talk about microwave pasta cookers. And let me tell you, both of my Italian grandmothers are probably spinning in their graves right about now. But the truth is, these gadgets work. And we tried 3 different models priced from $12.95 to $35. And as you can see, they're all made like a box. You kind of put the pasta in, you cover it with cold tap water, and then you just put it in the microwave for the time it says on the box of pasta. You pour off the water using these little holes in the lid as a strainer. And that's it. Look at that, perfect spaghetti. You don't need a big pot of boiling water, you don't need a colander. Now this one by Le Couet was the prettiest, but this silicone lid was just too soft, and its random holes let water splash up and burn us when we were trying to drain the pasta. So it came down to these other 2. Now this one by Tupperware was $30, more than twice the price of this one. For $12.95, the Fasta Pasta microwave cooker is our winner. It's safe, it's easy to clean, and it's foolproof. It's great for college dorms, small apartments, and quick meals.
All right, so it's been under the broiler for a little over 5 minutes, and they're gorgeous. You can see, got nicely browned and a little bit charred on top, and that's the really good flavor. I love the little charred bits.
You don't have to sell me. I mean, this looks great.
Yeah. Little crown of extra pecorino on the top. This is just a 1/4 cup. And then we're going to let the whole thing sit for just 5 minutes, and then we can eat it. And note, I put a towel over the hot handle, so you don't get that handle imprint burn on your...
Or someone else in your household does it, which is even worse.
Oh, hate that. So one final sprinkling of a little bit of basil on the top. Now that looks good. Would you like 1 or 2?
I'll have 1 to start.
1 to start. A taster. I'll put a little sauce on the side. Oh, I love the flavor of that roasted eggplant. It has such a nice, clean, creamy flavor.
You know, at the beginning of the show, I was dressed as an eggplant. This is my time. My time has arrived, right? Finally?
This is very elegant for an eggplant.
So the secrets to a great and also quick eggplant involtini is to start with slabs of eggplant. We salted them, and you put them in a 375 oven for about half an hour. Meanwhile, a quick tomato sauce in a pan. And then the filling was a little bit of bread to lighten up the texture, ricotta and some pecorino. Roll them up with the cheese, put them in the tomato sauce for a few minutes, then under the broiler to finish. So there you have it. For America's Test Kitchen to your kitchen, a 90-minute version of eggplant involtini, and it tastes much better than the original. If you've been around the food world for a long time, there's only one prosciutto di Parma. But I guess now other people are making it even here in this country. So the question is, do you have to shell out whatever it is, 20, 30 bucks a pound for the real deal? Or do domestic suppliers do just as good a job?
This is really interesting because what I love about American food manufacturers is the ability to innovate and improve. And so the way that they try to improve upon this 1,000-year-old product is to be able to offer it pre-sliced. This is a tasting of 9 brands of pre-sliced prosciutto. And the advantage of pre-sliced is that the packaging, they can take the oxygen out and it's stable for 120 days, obviously under refrigeration. And so you can have prosciutto for the masses. You don't need somebody at the deli counter who is able to slice the prosciutto. You pay for the convenience. You're spending anywhere between $20 and $60 a pound for the convenience of pre-sliced prosciutto. The good news is there were some brands that we thought were really quite good. The bad ones are really bad.
This one, I know in Italian you say salumi, but this is salami.
The real deal, which I have here in front of me, is pork and salt and a lot of time for aging. So you must read the ingredient list. And if you see sugar, you see spices, you see nitrates like they put in bacon and salami, or you see lactic acid starter culture, which is basically a way to fake the aging process, put it back down. Do not buy it. Walk away. It will be awful. The second way that some of the sliced prosciuttos can go wrong is they're sliced too thick. Especially if they're really well aged, which is generally a good thing, the aging causes a lot of evaporation and it can be pretty dry. And if it's then sliced really thick, it was just kind of too chewy. And we actually measured the thickness of each slice. We got out the calipers that we love to use. And the ideal thickness is 4/10 to 5/10 of a millimeter. And that some of the brands that were too thick were as much as twice that. They were close to a millimeter thick. And it just was, especially for eating with cheese and crackers and bread, just kind of chewy and didn't have the suppleness and that sort of lovely texture that you want from the real deal.
You can tell he's got Italian blood, the suppleness, he gets excited, he smiles.
I get really excited by prosciutto. So you've been tasting, had some feelings about at least one of the brands, anything that you're noticing?
This I like a lot. One of the things I think you want is nuttiness, cheesiness. It's been around for a while. It's preserved meat. This is nice of you, by the way. It's not rice. We're not tasting beans.
Are you going to save any for me, or are you just going to eat it all? Is that the way this is going?
Yeah. I like this the best. It really has that nuttiness, that cheesiness.
Okay.
I think these two, this was a little dry. These were a little blander. They didn't have the complexity, and this one was terrible.
Okay.
So I would pick this one.
You want to turn over the card?
I do.
You chose the real deal from Italy. Sliced to order yesterday. It is aged longer, so the prosciutto from Italy is aged a minimum of 14 months. None of the American pre-sliced ones are aged that long, and that nuttiness, that